So I look at early years and technology, so children between the ages of birth and 8 years old, and how new forms of technology may or may not help children. So I focus on interaction. My background is I was a teacher, an infant teacher, and then I hadn't really meant to go into academia, but there was a case studentship. So in England it was a PhD sponsored by the government and a company called Future Lab, which is it was a non-profit. It is a non-profit organisation in the UK that looks at sort of innovative forms of technology, and it was a great opportunity. I was given 3 years funding for 3 years to look at a form of technology called tangibles, which is when the technology is embedded inside objects, and asked to find out whether this did or didn't represent sort of a great new sort of potential for children in the early years. So my background was psychology, so there was many ways you could approach that type of question, and with my background what I looked at was how children interact physically with objects and whether something important was happening. So it was very interesting because it drew my sort of education experience of children in the classroom interacting physically with objects, but it also provided me sort of to the bigger picture of the role of interaction in the way we think. So there's a lot of work coming out at the moment that highlights the importance of the way we touch and feel and sort of the embodiment of knowledge, and how by changing that, by giving children new forms of interaction with a mouse or the Wii, that we actually may be changing sort of the ideas we develop. Okay, so I was trained as an infant teacher, and then I moved into teaching children with special needs, and by virtue of the fact I knew how to use a projector, I became the technology teacher. And it was a great opportunity because working with children who had sort of become dissociated from the curriculum, it meant that you had more flexibility of what you could do. And as a technology teacher, I was able to bring in sort of new things to try and engage children. So it could be anything from integrating a sort of an email system within the school to sort of hands-on toys that children could program. And I got involved with the Lego Mindstorms projects. And it was just amazing. Children who couldn't read or write or really been sort of thrown out of education were doing really intelligent things. They were sort of navigating online spaces. We had a couple of anecdotes of children who we had big questions come up. We had a 12-year-old who was making money using Habbo Hotel, which is a sort of online program. And this is a child who couldn't read or write, and suddenly they'd started a business at the age of 12. Now it throws in lots of ethical things, but what it showed to me was we have this new world that's offering a lot to these children, but also because of my experience as an infant teacher, I could see that this really was a big thing. And I suppose at that stage, I wanted to do more. I was in my school and I thought, no, this is actually a big thing. I want to be involved in it. I want to, if possible, become part of it and maybe do my own bit to sort of help it grow. So one of the things that's come up this week is got me to reflect on the two sides of the way I'm approaching my area. So I have a great belief that technology is having a big impact, and my perspectives from children in the early years, looking at how it affects the way children sort of think and learn before they reach school, and then the issues that come out of that. So the fact that at the age of 5 in England, you've got children who have great experiences, children that don't, all the equality issues involved with that, and how in a way education is sort of lagging. What they're using in schools is just not really as exciting as it could be, and the potential problems that could come out of that. So I've got my research, but I also started a company 6 months ago because I wanted to actually build a couple of things. And because the company is building tangible technologies, so hands-on technology for learning, there's a great relationship between what I research and what I do as a business. And what I would love is in 20 years from now to have this sort of fit in both worlds, because I do think that's an important relationship. I think children's world has been saturated and guided by businesses and companies, and so it would be nice to be able to research and understand, but at the same time be involved in the creation of things that children will use. I was given a good analogy by my supervisor when I was doing my PhD, that in a way research is you're like the sort of diver in this ocean of sort of information, and you sort of, a lot of what you're doing is you're diving down to something very specific and you're very focused, but every now and again it's really important to come back up again and sort of see the wider area. And using that sort of metaphor, I feel a little bit like I've been taken above the surface, a bit out my depth, but with a fantastic view of what's outside. One of the hang-ups maybe, but I was a little bit concerned that because I'm a psychologist, developmental psychologist, and my research is children in the early years, so the idea of sort of internet and those type of medias is not probably as important for children who are 4 or 5. I felt, could I just be completely out of water here and not have much to say? But it's fascinating that I do feel that it's very important, the research I do, and it is lovely to zoom out. So questions of inequality, of the way that children work together, the new forms of sort of technology, the new forms of voice. I think these are things that are happening earlier on in children's childhoods, and so it's given me a fresh way of seeing what I do, and that's really exciting. Very personalised attention that I think I hadn't seen for a while. I mean, my research with my advisors, yes, but I'm a couple of years out my PhD, and you have good conversations with people, but I suppose to have that focused attention, someone who's really read your work, sat down with a paper and got time to talk to you, someone who's sort of really looked at where your career's going. I mean, it felt really good. It felt really personal. So I started the year as a fellow, a research fellow. It's a lovely fellowship in England that you get to basically disseminate your research and build networks. And I saw this as a really timely opportunity to push those networks much further out. So I did some work with Stella, which is the European sort of organisation for technology, and that was lovely to get to know European researchers. But yeah, in a lot of ways, America is where it's happening, technology and psychology, and I thought this was a lovely opportunity to come over and sort of being part of a more international thing. As it turned out, I was the only non-American in the group, which I didn't know how to sort of interpret that. But I suppose it gave me a sort of special status in that way, and it's done everything and more. It's really given me a sort of different lens. It's like I said, my background's quite sort of educational and psychological, and a lot of the conversations here are more sort of sociological, and that's put me out my depth. But in a way, it's been really good for me. I've learnt a lot in the last week.